UK outbreak shows early signs of slowing, expert says, but restrictions may last for 6 months. London. The UK could remain under coronavirus emergency measures for as long as 6 months, a top health official has said, even as one expert said there were early signs that the outbreak was slowing in Britain. Curbs on normal life may need to continue through the summer and into the autumn in order to avoid progress being wasted, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer Jenny Harries said on Sunday. Harries suggested that while lockdown rules could be relaxed once the curve of cases begins to flatten, strict social distancing guidelines will likely remain in place. Restrictions on the social interactions and a partial economic shutdown were imposed last week to combat the spread of the virus in the UK. Shops, pubs, restaurants and businesses were closed, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson banned almost all social events and public gatherings. A prominent epidemiologist said on Monday that there were some early optimistic signs that the measures were working. Neil Ferguson, a professor of mathematical biology at Imperial College London, whose modelling has influenced UK government policy, told BBC Radio on Monday that he believes the epidemic is just about slowing in the UK right now. He pointed to a slight slowdown in the rate of increase in hospital admissions as evidence for cautious optimism. It is the result of the actions people have taken and governments have taken, Ferguson said, adding that the development of an antibody test will be critical to getting more accurate data on the extent of the outbreak. The tests are in the final stages of validation right now, Ferguson said, suggesting they could be available in days rather than weeks. The UK has ordered millions of those tests, which would detect whether someone has previously had the COVID-19 virus, a development Johnson previously called a gamechanger. But Harries, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, warned against lifting restrictions too early. If we are successful, we will have squashed the top of that curve, which is brilliant, but we must not then suddenly revert to our normal way of living, Harries said during the government's daily coronavirus briefing on Sunday. That would be quite dangerous. If we stop then all of our efforts would be wasted, and we could potentially see a second peak. Harries said a review would take place after 3 weeks of the measures, but predicted authorities would need 2 or 3 months to see whether we have really squashed it, but about 3 to 6 months ideally. Johnson wrote in a letter to be delivered to millions of British homes that things will get worse before they get better. Harries agreed. We actually anticipate that our numbers will get worse over the next week, possibly 2, and then we are looking to see whether we have managed to push that curve, and we start to see a decline, she said. The country has recorded 1228 deaths from the virus so far, and Johnson has repeatedly warned that its health service, the NHS, is at risk of collapsing if people do not follow the rules to stay at home. Top advisor self-isolates. There are mounting concerns about the spread of COVID-19 at the top echelons of the UK government. Dominic Cummings, a top advisor to Johnson, is self-isolating after developing COVID-19 symptoms, a government spokesperson said on Monday. Johnson and his health minister, Matt Hancock, are both in self-quarantine after testing positive for COVID-19 last week. England's chief medical officer Professor Chris Whitty said Friday he is following the same protocol after developing symptoms, though he had not been tested. None of the 3 officials were present at Sunday's daily briefing, at which Harries delivered her stark warning about the length of the restrictions. Harries added that a lengthy extension of emergency measures would not necessarily mean the UK would be in complete lockdown for 6 months. It means that as a nation, we have to be really responsible and keep doing what we're doing until we're sure that we can gradually start lifting various interventions. Even an extension of social distancing rules, however, would force Britons to remain in their homes throughout the summer months and mean major sporting events such as the Premier League would either need to be postponed further or continue without spectators. CNN's Lauren Kent, Lindsay Isaac, Simon Cullen and Luke McGee contributed reporting. Click subscribe to receive the latest news.